Hello, friends. This is Sam Chaney reporting for Weaponized News. Today's June 3rd, 2026. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition of Weaponized News. Quite a bit of news to get to today. Apparently, we have a Congress that does more than cover up its own sex harassment. So, Congress, in a symbolic vote, the House of Representatives side of the legislative branch of the federal government voted on the war powers resolution. Still needs to go to the Senate. We're going to take a look at those details. The fallout on Iran attacks on our bases yesterday, kind of a big deal. Who cares, right? Trump doesn't care, apparently. We got all that fallout. Well, Trump has said it was Iran was just reciprocating U.S. strikes. The ceasefire is still intact. Imagine that. We'll cover that. It's just, wow. So I thought we were big tough guys, man. Nobody messes with America. Oh, it was just reciprocating attacks. What happened? Taco Trump here. Taco Trump. Our bases get whacked. They lie about it, and then Trump doesn't do anything. So that's where we're at. So I was wondering, why the hell did they appoint this William Pullet? Why the hell did they appoint him to top spy here in America, to acting director of national intelligence, where I think we have an answer to that today. I think we found the answer. Why did they appoint this guy? Well, because they're rolling out the smart cities. They're rolling out the Model Cities Initiative. And so we're going to take a look at that for technocracy. And so we do appreciate their efforts to enslave everyone they don't terminate. We're going to take a look at that. The back and forth still now on day 96 of Iran war. We're going to take a look at that. What else do we have today? We have a bunch of fallout. A bunch of fallout from the data centers, actually here in California, where the rest of the country I know loves to hate. They did vote in our democracy to be the first city, Monterey Park, the first city to ban data centers. Take a look at that. A little bit about public health. A little bit more about public health. Maha wins, they say. We'll take a look at that. Did we really get some Maha wins in the first 500 days? We'll take a look at that. We have a bunch of economic news. We have a bunch of Epstein news. We got geopolitical news. Zelensky says he's ready for peace. So are we, bro. So are we. So's the rest of the world. We are ready for peace as well. And the ethnic cleansing, genocide in Lebanon continues, as it does in Gaza. All of those details and much more on this Wednesday edition of Weaponized News. See a few people coming online. Shout out to Mac there in the chat on the YouTube. All right, let's get to this day in history. We do have a lot of news to get to. On this day of June 3rd, we go back to the year 1539. We saw the Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto claims Florida for Spain. 1621. On this day, the Dutch West India Company receives charter for the West Indies, the Americas, Caribbean, and West Africa. 1784 on this day, U.S. Army officially established by Congress of the Confederation. On this day in 1856, Colin Whipple patents a machine for making screws. a major part of the Industrial Revolution there. On this day in 1861, we saw the first American Civil War land battle. Union forces defeat Confederacy at Philippi in now modern-day West Virginia. And then we fast forward to the end of the Civil War. On this day in 1864, General Robert E. Lee wins his last victory of the U.S. Civil War at the Battle of Cold Harbor. On this day in 1871, Jesse James and his gang robs Obocock Bank there in Iowa for an estimated total of $15,000. 1941, on this day, German occupiers stamped J on aardvark passports. 1943, on this day, a mob of 60 from Los Angeles Naval Reserve Armory beats up everyone perceived to be Hispanic, starting the week-long Zoot Suit riots there in Los Angeles. On this day in 1946, the first bikini bathing suit went on display in Paris, France. 1949, on this day, Dragnet is first broadcast on radio, KFI, in Los Angeles. And everybody should go look at the comedy Dragnet film with Dan Aykroyd, and I do believe, Mr. Red Shoe Man, what the hell's his name? Anyway, the other actor, Forrest Gump. I can't even think of his name. Anyhow, in there, they lay out how there's a bunch of Satanists in the government running stuff. They do it in a cartoonish way to get you to poo-poo it and think it's all but a joke. Discount their stupid uniforms with the pentagrams and the black robes and think of it as a mindset. And if you look at it through that lens, they're telling you in the comedy film Dragnet how the power structure actually works. But you need to read between the lines when you're viewing it. Okay, continuing here. 1968, on this day, assassination attempt on Andy Warhol. American radical feminist Valerie Salonis attempts to assassinate Andy Warhol by shooting him 3 times. She is later diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and pleads guilty to reckless assault with intent to harm, serving a 3-year sentence. Got 3 years for shooting Andy Warhol, dude. Should have got more than that, but what the hell. On this day in 1989, Tiananmen Square. Remember this. Remember Tiananmen Square. Beginning of the Tiananmen Square massacre as Chinese troops opened fire on pro-democracy supporters in Beijing. And they usually only show us this guy standing up against the establishment of the tyranny. This guy, right? Standing up against these tanks. But we take a look at the wider shot, and this guy was standing up against more than just those tanks. He was standing up against, geez, take a look at this. Thought I had it pulled up and ready here. Here we go. We have the wider shot. Here it is. So this is what Tiananmen Man was standing up against there. Right there. Now that's something to stand up against. Be this guy standing up against all that. Right there. Be that guy. Continuing here, on this day in 2019, the Canadian government inquiry finds deaths of over 1,000 Indigenous women and girls over decades who had been murdered or are missing. a national genocide there in Canada. And on this day in 2020, former Defense Secretary James Mattis says in an interview with The Atlantic, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. I'd say that's pretty accurate. On this day in our civil liberties history, we go back to the Zoot Suit riots. On this day, 1943, there in Los Angeles. The so-called Zoot Suit riots, a series of violent clashes between Latino Americans, U.S. sailors on leave, and local police in Los Angeles during World War II, erupted on this day in Los Angeles. An initial incident occurred on May 30th, but this day is generally regarded as the beginning of the riots. The name came from the Zoot Suits, which were hip style of men's suits among jazz musicians, young Latinos, and African Americans. The riot was a culmination of rising ethnic and racial tensions in years before it erupted. The major conflict occurred in Los Angeles, although conflicts occurred in San Jose, Oakland, San Diego, and Delano, California. The initial violence began with a confrontation between a group of young Latinos and U.S. soldiers. It soon escalated with Los Angeles police officers, some calling themselves members of the Vigilant Squad, joining in. Eventually, more than 150 people were injured and over 500 Latinos arrested. Military authorities declared Los Angeles off limits to Navy and Marine personnel, and the disorders eventually ended. Los Angeles City Council debated but did not pass an ordinance making it a crime to wear a zoot suit. And on this day in our civil liberties history, in the year 1970, we saw the ACLU calls the Vietnam War unconstitutional, cites lack of declaration of war. Where have we seen that? Well, we'll take a look at the Congress vote today about that issue. In a major departure from its traditional practice, the American Civil Liberties Union on this day adopted a formal policy declaring the Vietnam War unconstitutional. Traditionally, the ACLU had regarded decisions about going to war to be political questions that were not in and of themselves civil liberties matters. After several years of internal debate over the issue, the ACLU board of directors concluded that there has been no declaration of war as required by the Constitution, and that the war had brought on significant violations of civil liberties. The ACLU statement called for an immediate termination of the war. What's Constitution? What are these guys talking about at the ACLU? The Vietnam War created a number of civil liberties crises. They include the lack of congressional declaration of war as required by the Constitution. Big conspiracy there. Threats to freedom of the press in the Pentagon Papers case, spying on the anti-war movement by the CIA, threats to freedom of expression, for example, high school students' protests, censorship of television programs, and directly and indirectly some of the events that led to the Watergate scandal. Wowzers. All right, here's our segue to the news. Trump calls himself one of the finest intellects in the history of our country. Well, he is one hell of a con man. I don't know how anybody's still falling for the con, but apparently there's a cult of personality out there that lives and dies on whatever Trump says.
We have 325 to 350 million people. And you would think that we would have some great ones. We do have great ones, but they don't seem to be chosen by the Democrats. And of course, the Republicans shows one of the finest intellects in the history of our country. It's the cream to the top. But I'm amazed, including Republicans.
Trump's looking loaded right there, honestly. I think they got him on some meds. That's what it looks like to me. Here's Shadow President of America, Bibi.
Israel, what would you do then?
I think we have common goals. Let's give it a chance to achieve them.
Do you have common goals on how this war should end?
I think it's an open question because the reality is open. You can see that. I mean, things are. I know the president is weighing many options, and we keep in touch. We talk very often. We talk about.
How often?
Once every 2 days, typical. So we talk it out, but I don't think it makes sense to reveal to Iran the subject of our conversation.
Talks to Trump every 2 days, as it should be. Trump on the Iran war. Iran on the attacks yesterday. Iran was reciprocating U.S. strikes. He says ceasefire still intact. President Trump suggested earlier today that Iran's attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain were a direct response to prior U.S. action, stopping short of condemning them and indicating the ceasefire remains in effect. You can't have it always, Trump. You can't have it always, everything in between. Trump said there's a reason for everything. We hit them pretty hard the night before, and actually last night. Some people would say they were slightly provoked because we took a strong action for a different reason. So they were reciprocating it. U.S. forces nipped it in the bud quickly, Trump says. On the ceasefire negotiations, Trump said the ceasefire remains intact despite the exchanges. I knew the negotiation itself was going very well. If it happens, it may happen over the weekend. At that part of the world, Trump claimed a ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate pattern. I'm glad we got clarity on what a ceasefire means because none of them follow what a ceasefire means. On the ground, Kuwait confirmed 1 death and at least 63 injuries from Iranian attacks. Iran said it not caused damage to Terminal 1 at Kuwait International Airport. CENTCOM called Iranian claims that airport damage was caused by a U.S. missile interceptor totally false. On Hezbollah and Aardvark land, Trump said he would like to separate the Iran and Lebanon negotiations. It is separate. And Iran says it's not separate. We'll get to that. Trump is fabricating a victory narrative because he waged a war based on lies and was fought into a standstill by a country that said openly, we're going to light up the Middle East. That's a headline out of Sky News. Bill Pollute. Howard Lutnick proudly posted this yesterday, the new acting director of national intelligence. I was like, why is this guy a housing guru dude like Trump in there? Well, we're going to get to that. Why is he in there? The White House says, I'm appointing this dude. Why is he the top spy leading America's intelligence agencies? William has deep experience managing the most sensitive matters in America, the safety of markets, and over $10 trillion. So the White House says. Here's Trump on modern city initiatives. Then we're going to take a look via the Justice Department. And this is why they put Pollute there, because he's going to enforce the smart cities initiatives, the 15-minute cities, the complete technological control slave grids.
From the very first day I took office, our administration has waged the most successful war on crime in American history. Last year, the murder rate saw the single largest decline ever recorded, falling to the lowest level in 125 years. We've reduced the fentanyl coming across our border by 60%, from Washington to Memphis to New Orleans to our southern border. We are restoring law and order to America. Now we're taking our next big step to defend public safety in America. At my direction, the Department of Justice is beginning what we're calling the Model Cities Initiative to slash violent crime in major metropolitan areas all across our country. In selected cities, the Department of Justice will provide $300 million in grants to hire police officers, modernize equipment, provide training, and improve law enforcement. This historic funding will go to confronting substance abuse, preventing youth crime, and combating repeat offenders. In short, we're committed to making historic investments in improving the quality of life of city residents nationwide. For the next 90 days, any city or local government representing a population of more than 100,000 people can apply to take part in this exciting new program. It's amazing. Tell your local representatives to apply now by going to www.justice.gov/grants. With your help, we will put more police on our streets, and we will put dangerous criminals behind bars where they belong, and we want to keep them there. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good time. You're amazing people.
It's technocracy, hardcore scientific dictatorship. That's what this is. Today, we're excited to announce the Model Cities Initiative, which is the next step in this administration's mission to restore law and order back the blue and make America safe again. Again, the government can't and won't keep you safe, I guess. Well, they couldn't even keep Epstein safe from killing himself, right? That's the official story. Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill, we are surging $300 million in grant funds to support 2 to 4 cities with a population of 100,000 or more who are serious in reducing violent crime, restoring law and order, and modernizing their public safety infrastructure, which translates to scientific dictatorship. Here it is from the Justice Department, who's carrying on the biggest cover-up in American history of the Epstein files. So I trust them with this police state measures. Department of Justice, fiscal year 2026 Model Cities Initiative. Here's the grant application proposal. In cities across America, violent crime and public disorder have surged over the past few years. Policies that have weakened and demoralized law enforcement, limited the prosecution of crimes, and de-emphasized holding criminals accountable have resulted in a climate of fear and instability for law-abiding citizens. Really? And so they go through the crime statistics. And yeah, if you have a police state, then I suppose crime would go down. But I don't think we're supposed to be living under martial law. But what the hell? Anything for public safety, even though the government can't and won't keep you safe, to make America safe again by continuing and expanding the successes seen in essentially de facto martial law they rolled out there in Memphis and Washington, D.C. The DOJ is seeking applications for the Model Cities Initiative, MCI. A model city implements comprehensive and innovative strategies to reduce crime, restore law and order, and serve as a nationwide example. It leverages technology, data, and partnerships to address drivers of crime. This initiative will provide substantial targeted funding to select cities to realize this vision. Funding awarded through MCI will emphasize common sense policing, including prioritizing deterrence through proactive policing and increasing police activities in high crime areas. Funding will encourage the adoption of new technologies. Funding will also encourage the adoption of new technologies. This is your scientific dictatorship, including drones and artificial intelligence and modern methods to track criminal behavior and gather intelligence. Additionally, additionally recognizing that keeping cities safe requires a whole of community approach, MCI will provide funding to help cities build forensic and prosecutorial capacity, support victims, except for Epstein victims, reduce recidivism, and address substance use and mental health challenges tied to public safety outcomes, and just find the big opioid derivative makers and never putting them in prison. I added that part. Okay, here it is. Equipment and technology. Purchase or lease of equipment, tools, or technology that reduce crime and restore law and order include, but are not limited to, real-time crime centers, forensic and DNA tools, body-worn cameras, license plate readers, artificial intelligence systems, smart unmanned aircraft systems, counter unmanned aircraft systems, ballistic identification systems, and IT upgrades, but not limited to systems that connect jails, prisons, and entities in the community that provide pre and post re-entry services. Yeah, they're rolling out the giant scientific dictatorship police state right here. This is your technocracy, and that's why they put that dude, the new dude, at the head of the Director of National Intelligence Office. So it's all starting to make sense. Expand crime fighting, investigation, and prosecution capacity. And I don't think I'll read all this now. We may come back to it. Goal number 2, improve and modernize crime data collection, intelligence gathering, incidents response, and analytic capabilities to drive evidence-based policing. Develop innovative nation-leading approaches to policing and violent crime reduction. Enhance law enforcement readiness and support for frontline officers. Expand services for American victims of crime. Reduce recidivism and support community reintegration. Expand behavioral treatment and recovery services that improve public safety outcomes. And there's a whole lot of more details there about it. We may circle back and take a harder look at that because it is very important. They're rolling out the smart cities. They're rolling out technocracy, the Model Cities Initiative for public safety. That's it right there. And that's why we have the new head of the Director of National Intelligence, because he's going to enforce all of this. Continuing here, Netanyahu's personal lawyer Michael Robel was elected to Aardvarkland state comptroller. So that's good to keep the corruption going there. If it wasn't for me, there would be no Aardvarkland right now. Let's hear from Trump. Well, of course, that's what America's about, is Aardvarkland, as they continue to tell us.
Just words, that's all they do. That's all they're good for is words. Like, I heard that the other day for the first time. I said, he tricked me. I mean, I'm the one that started it because, again, I don't want to bore anybody, but I started because we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Now, that pertains to Israel because they probably would have been the first one to get hit. There would be no Israel. Tell you what, if there wasn't me, there would be no Israel.
Not a bad idea, Trump. This speaks to the fact, and then Congress is making a bunch of noise about Aardvarkland has nukes. This speaks to the fact their nukes can't do what they say they can, or else they would have used them already a long time ago. More from Trump here.
Now I have to make a determination. Do we sign a deal or we do it the other way? And the other way is not nice.
What will the other way achieve, though?
Certainty. It would be over. There wouldn't be any bullshit. There wouldn't be any talking. There wouldn't be any delays. But I'd rather do it the nice way from a humanitarian standpoint.
Can you do it just with bombing? The other way?
You don't have to. We don't need boots on the ground now. Well, we did it. We wiped out much of their military.
Trump says Iran's supreme leader, Khomeini, is involved in negotiations. Trump said Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khomeini is giving approval and is involved absolutely in talks with Washington. Thought we had regime change there, Trump. Not so much. The Ayatollah's mullah regime still in charge with Khomeini at the top as supreme leader. Well, let's hear from Shadow President Bibi.
Drone attacks and missile attacks by Iran on U.S. troops in Kuwait. The images from the Kuwait airport were devastating. In Bahrain. So is there a ceasefire or not?
Look, I think there's a tactical game that's being played. And Iran surely knows what the president has said, that if necessary, there'll be a full-scale return to military action. It's the president's decision. Israel is ready and the U.S. forces are ready. I think Iran should take that into account. I think they are taking it into account.
You went on to say they're playing with fire. What does Iran have to say about this? Well, Iran's Ghalibaf, Speaker of their parliament, said the Iranian people have shown in their confrontation with the United States and the Zionist regime that the era of threatening Iran without cost has come to an end, and that any aggression will be met with a firm, proportionate, and regret-inducing response. This dude, Ghalibaf. Iran claims it struck a U.S. destroyer command center in the Gulf of Oman and warned further retaliation against U.S. forces. That's a report out of Iranian state TV. U.S. Central Command has denied that claim. Iran says Bahrain, Kuwait bear direct responsibility for new IRGC strikes. Iran's foreign ministry condemned the U.S. attack on an Iranian oil tanker in the Strait of Hormuz and a telecommunications tower on Qasim Island last night, saying the strikes originated from two regional countries and holding the rulers of Bahrain and Kuwait directly, and are holding the rulers of Bahrain and Kuwait directly responsible. The ministry said the attacks violated the April 8th ceasefire agreement and constituted a, quote, blatant violation of Article 2, Section 4 of the UN Charter, which prohibits the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of states. It warned that Iran would use all, quote, all capacities at its disposal to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity, including targeting the origin and source of any future attacks. Kuwait declares two Iranian diplomats persona non grata following retaliatory missile and drone strikes. Kuwait says Terminal 1 at Kuwait International Airport was heavily damaged during last night's Iranian drone and missile attacks. These strikes reportedly targeted Ali Al Salman Air Base and Erfajah Base, leading to speculation that the damage may have been caused by a failed interceptor missile. Here's some of that damage. And that's what they're saying may be failed interceptor missile damage. Kuwait announced earlier today 63 people were injured, including 7 who underwent major surgeries as a result of Iranian attacks, according to the Kuwait Ministry of Health. Iran's foreign minister, Odysee, says one-armed forces are conducting self-defense strikes on sites the U.S. is permitted to use to attack civilian shipping and violate the ceasefire. Any hostile act will be met with an immediate, decisive response. What sanctions and war failed to achieve won't be won with more war. Odysee, foreign minister of Iran, went on to say any attack on Beirut will have serious consequences and will lead to the full resumption of waiting. We're just waiting for that to happen, for aardvarks to go ahead and whack Beirut hard and then kick this whole thing off. And so that's really all that needs to happen here now, per Iran. Iran moves to deepen strategic partnership with China amid post-war economic review. And so, yeah, it's pushing Iran closer to China and Russia to deepen strategic partnership. It's unifying the Iranian people. And there's a report they're more likely, from the International Energy Agency, that they're more likely now to develop a nuclear weapons program than they were before February 28th. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the War Powers Resolution a few hours ago with a vote of 215 to 208, directing President Trump to withdraw American forces from hostilities with Iran, with 4 Republicans breaking ranks and voting with the Democrats. The measure is non-binding without Senate passage and carries limited immediate impact, but this marks Congress's first successful House vote asserting war powers authority over the Iran war and constrains future military action without congressional approval. Imagine that. Congress doing their job? Shocking, I know. House votes to rebuke Trump over war with Iran. The House passed a largely symbolic war powers resolution earlier today over objections from Republican leaders that it would weaken President Trump's hand in negotiations with Iran. Iran vote caps Trump's congressional losing streak, report out of Politico. And they go through here about, was it said the SAVE Act, getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen, apparently. Here now they go through, the anti-weaponization fund has been pulled back now. They go through a couple of little things here. We'll move on. Representative Castro here, Democrat. He's asking about aardvark nukes, right? And so he needs to be sanctioned and droned immediately. He's asking little Marco here in this clip about it.
Both in closed and open sessions, you know, as a U.S. Senator, former U.S. Senator, about the nuclear capabilities of other nations, Iran, China, Russia, France, the UK, both adversaries and allies. And so I wanted to ask you the question today, will you tell us, the Congress and the American people, whether Israel in fact possesses nuclear weapons?
You know that's a question that they've never acknowledged to have a nuclear program. People can have, as you know, in open source and other reporting, suspicions about what they possess. If we're speaking frankly, I think most of the world assesses that they do. But they've never acknowledged that publicly, and as a feature of our foreign policy for a variety of reasons, we don't discuss it in that way either.
Well, I guess a few things. This is the first time, especially for an extended period, that we are at war with an ally, Israel, against Iran, and we have service members deployed. And we don't, if they in fact possess nuclear weapons, and you're right, in open source reporting that has come across, we don't know what their red lines are for using those nuclear weapons. And so I guess I'm shocked that our government wouldn't make an effort to know, to understand, and then to give our oversight body.
All this speaks to the nukes they say they have can't do what they say they can do. Because you're damn straight Aardvark land would have used nukes a long time ago.
You're a cook for Israel! You're a cook for Israel! Fuck you! Cook for Israel!
There's little Marco getting called a cuck for Aardvark land. Little Marco on bombing of Nigeria. They don't care about the bombing of Christians in Lebanon or the ethnic cleansing of Christians, but we're protecting those Christians in Nigeria from the radical Islamic terrorists that in some kind of direct and indirect way, Western intelligence is responsible for creating. So imagine that, the snake in his tail, problem, reaction, solution, the same old feedback loop, and lies that the State Department and the U.S. government care about Christians. Little Marco had this to say. He said, on Nigeria, where we are all very concerned about violence against Christians, we are now actively in counterterrorism cooperation with the Nigerian government and Nigerian security forces, including a joint operation a couple of weeks ago that took out number 2 leader of global ISIS. We reported on that. So it's good of them to go clean up the terrorists that they created. Yeah. For the Christians, of course. But hey, they're bombing Christians right now in Lebanon. Yeah, screw those Christians. More from Bibi here now. And this ties into, we'll put this in order because it's all to give you the context.
Because of the war and because of the rise of these new technologies which Israel excels in, we have countries in and around the Middle East and far away from the Middle East who are coming to us and saying, we want to partner with you. And I want to partner with them. And the other thing I want to do is move away in America from aid to partnership.
You've said this, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're now working.
Move away from aid to partnership. And that is this section in the NDAA, giant military funding bill, section 224 that we continue to report on here, extremely concerning. Let's watch this report out of Breaking Points. They're talking about it.
People may have seen this this news that under pressure from J Street, AOC, like the increasing Democratic opposition to continuing to fund the Israeli military, which even Netanyahu has said we want to phase it out.
Yeah,
like we're done with these American subsidies. Section 224 of the NDAA tell us what it's doing. Like, it's described as effectively blending together the Israeli military and the Pentagon in a way that would make it basically impossible for critics to come in and say, we want this stopped. How would this, as somebody from the State Department whose job it was to oversee this relation, or not oversee the relationship, but heavily involved in the relationship, what is the difference in this approach versus what we have had up until now?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So first, let's start by taking a step back and realizing, I think, one fact everyone, I think, at this point can acknowledge. AIPAC are losing. Mm-hmm. The American people have had a transformation of opinion, public opinion, when it comes to Palestine and to Israel. If we look at the current election cycle that you've been discussing, we see that there is very clearly an advance for those who stand up, who are willing to call a genocide a genocide. And in that context, what AIPAC are trying to do, and Israel and their allies, is essentially lock in the current relationship, because they realize that these midterms might bring a shift in the House or in the Senate or in both, and it's just going to get continually harder and harder for them over time. Right now, we give Israel $3.8 billion of American taxpayer money every year for their military. In fact, in some years, significantly more than that. And that's just not going to be sustainable. I don't think anyone looking at current American politics, looking ahead 5-10 years, imagines that members of Congress are going to be okay with continuing that funding. So if you're them, what do? How do you lock in the current relationship and get around
democracy?
The democracy, right? Exactly. The public opinion and Congress's increasing unwillingness to just sort of hand out American funds. And the way you do that is by entrenching the U.S.-Israel defense relationship so deep in the machinery of the Pentagon and in the production of America's industrial base that it becomes impossible to root out. And that's what this section of law, section 224, is trying to do. This is part of something called the National Defense Authorization Act. It's an annual so-called must-pass bill, and it's going through the House Armed Services Committee tomorrow, Thursday, 4th of June. And this is in the base text. This has been put there by the chairman of the committee, Chairman Rogers. So it is going to be very hard to root out. I think we will have, a shot tomorrow. Representative Ro Khanna is going to introduce an amendment to try and strip it out. If that fails, Republican Representative Thomas Massey has said he's going to try to pull it out on the floor. And if that fails, then we still have a battle to fight in the Senate. And again, when the two bills come together during what they call conference in November, December. But look, this is in some ways the ball game. Once this language is in there, it, first of all, tells DoD that it has to do everything it can to integrate Israeli technology into American weapons platforms. It identifies a series of areas for US and Israel to cooperate and research together, including the most sensitive technologies you can imagine, biological technologies, quantum technologies, AI. And it creates an executive agent at the Pentagon whose job is to move this program forward. That's an executive agent who would be able to essentially overrule the people in charge of defense technology security at the Pentagon, the policy people, any of this. So once the ball starts rolling, it becomes very difficult to pull out. You see corporate contracts, government-to-government contracts, academic contracts being signed that are hard to unwind. And I think one of the worst aspects here, the final thing, is that it really flips the script on leverage. If you think about the US-Israel relationship right now, we have the leverage. We don't use it.
Right.
We should.
But it exists.
But it exists. We can cut the funding. We can cut the weapons. Once you make American arms supply and the American warfighters' advantage dependent on the Israeli supply chain, they can do that. They can say, well, we're not going to provide this technology anymore that enables your fighter jets, your electric.
Yeah. What a nightmare Section 224 is. We will continue to report and track it as it heads through the Congress. Wowzers. And then think of that in the context of these smart cities that they're rolling out with all this technology. Think of it in that context. All of this is weaponized. We're in a wartime economy now. They've told us multiple different ways. Think of that on top of the Model Cities initiative, because it all integrates together. You see? What a freaking nightmare. Our greatest allies foisting upon us here now. Okay, some debunking by U.S. Central Command now about Iranian claims. Iran is now claiming it has targeted a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Gulf of Oman. Truth, Iran is lying. U.S. military assets at sea continue to fly, sail, and operate safely and unimpeded. But okay, I trust you, bro, big brother government, U.S. Central Command. But the problem with it is you guys said this, and reports came out a month later in the beginning phases of this war. You guys had the same routine. The damage is not that bad to our bases. No big deal. Turns out we went over the reports. No, it's like tenfold worse. And you guys said it was no big deal. So call me skeptical of fact checks from the U.S. Central Command. I want to believe you, bro, but you already told us a bunch of lies before this. Next fact check by them. Iran claimed today that it did not attack the passenger terminal at Kuwait International Airport, and damage was instead caused by a U.S. missile interceptor. Totally false. True. Iran struck the civilian airport with drones in a deliberate, calculated, and unjustified attack. So was it a failure of the missile interceptor system, or was it Iranian drones? Iran says it was that. America says it was this. We're police of the Strait of Hormuz. Thankfully, U.S. Central Command reports that as of today, CENTCOM forces have redirected 125 commercial vessels and disabled 6 to ensure compliance with the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Another fact check here by U.S. Central Command. They say Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claims they struck U.S. 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain and a U.S. airbase in the region with missiles and drones. That's false. U.S. Central Command claims. The truth is, all Iranian attacks on American forces failed. U.S. forces remain vigilant and ready to defend against unwarranted Iranian aggression. I wish that was true. I hope it's true. I want to believe you guys. I just simply can't. So you got both sides. On to public health, and we got a bunch more about it once we get to our geopolitical section. On to public health. Are you tired of winning? The Department of Health and Human Services posted this. 500 days of Maha winning. Are we tired of winning yet? I'm kind of tired of winning. 500 days of Maha wins. 40% of food industry removing synthetic dyes. 120 plus childhood health initiatives announced. $1.8 billion in annual taxpayer savings at HHS. Real food prioritized in federal nutrition guidance. Whole milk is back in schools. Priority authorization or red tape reduced. Prescription drug prices driven down. Mercury being removed from flu miracles. Medical price transparency expanded. Physician nutrition education overhauled. World Health Organization withdrawal initiated. Communities taking action on fluoride exposure. Food ingredient safety standards strengthened. And we're just getting started, they say. They did, well, we won't even get into that. Now, well, here's TV Dr. Oz pushing drugs on the American people. Don't do the drugs, kids. Legal or illegal, don't do their drugs.
I got an announcement that today we are adding 160 more drugs to this site. Now, the site already has 700 or so, or 600 or so drugs, so it's going to take it over 750 total. But that is an important number for other reasons. It means that 4 out of 5 medications that are picked up by Americans going into that same drugstore that I mentioned earlier now have the opportunity to double check that the price they're getting in that drugstore, wherever they're buying it from, is the best price out there.
So there you go. All those new drugs at trumprx.gov as they're pushing drugs on the American people. The tick problem. This was posted by HHS.
31 million people a year are being bitten by ticks, and half a million unfortunately get Lyme disease. And I think that number is even skewed lower because the diagnostic tests are not that great, meaning the false negatives are high. We need better biomarkers, and we are working on that right now in real time, and of course, better treatment. So Secretary Kennedy is so dedicated to solving this problem during this administration. 31 million people a year are being...
31 million people a year are bitten by ticks. That's what they're claiming here. That was Dr. Stephanie Harpoulos. Seems an awful high number to me. So that's the new narrative they're rolling out now with all this weaponized tick fear. You got Lyme disease, you got alpha-gal disease. CNN has run 3 separate segments in the past week on tick-borne red meat allergies spreading like wildfire, and calls to ease public fear. That's not news, it's advertising. Expect alpha-gal to become the next fear franchise as the narrative machine ramps up. That was a post by Jason Bassler. We have a few posts by him at a Free Thought Project right there. And it's a whole of government approach, as they say. So the government's on board pushing the propaganda from its end via public health with the cable news network there, a la Operation Mockingbird 2.0, pushing the narrative on its end as well. Well, it's not all bad. They are, but again, it always goes back to, okay, everything's in a shit can, a dumpster fire. No one is held accountable for letting things to get to this point, as if it's all an agenda and they're playing the pendulum swinging back and forth, or you would hold someone in government accountable for these utter and complete failures to the point of criminality, people dying and the like. But yet no one in government is ever held accountable. Very few. Very few. They are doing beautification there in Washington, D.C. 22 fountains restored, the Department of the Interior reports. Graffiti removed and historical sites cleaned. It's the same government workers doing it as were the last administrations. A little good news. They're trying to clean up a little bit. Where were they? All the rest, all in the past, and no one's held accountable for these complete and utter failures, incompetence. It has to be, in some part, by design. On to Epstein reporting here now. Well, we're at the top of the hour. Let's take our live commercial break. Thank you to everybody in the chats there. We have a slow chat today, apparently. Let's take our live commercial break. Give me that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. We went through a lot of hardcore news there for an hour with no commercials. Not many shows doing that. Give me that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. Go to weaponizednews.com/shop. Get yourself a holograph sticker there. All the colors of the rainbow for Pride Month there. You can see on the holograph sticker for Weaponized News. If you don't like Pride Month, we have a white background sticker there for you and a clear sticker as well. We have the 3 stickers at weaponizednews.com/shop. The link's in the description below this video. We got baseball caps, t-shirts, coffee mugs, shot glasses, a bunch of different gear and items at weaponizednews.com/shop. Go over there and take a look. If you don't want to become a patron to the store, we take donations. The links are in the description below this video. Buy me a coffee, Cash App, Bitcoin wallet address. All the links are in the description below this video. Become a paid subscriber at Weaponized News Substack. There you get the whole show. You get a summary of the show and links to almost everything we talk about for documentation and further research purposes. I don't put anything behind a paywall here. Everything's free to the public. Spread the word. Give me that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. If you want to show further support for independent reporting and analysis brought to you 5 days a week, broadcasting live, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern time, then become a paid subscriber, Weaponized News Substack. That's a way to support the show. Many different ways to financially support us. I understand the economy's in the tank. If you can't afford to financially support us, give us that like, share, subscribe, push that notification button. All of that is free for you. Any which way you choose to support us is much appreciated. And a special thank you to the patrons of the store, the donors to the program, and also to the subscribers and paid subscribers. Especially thank you to those out there. You know who you are. We do appreciate all of your support. All right, welcome back to the second half of Weaponized News on this June 3rd, Wednesday edition, 2026. Let's get into Epstein reporting now. Epstein survivor condemns Keir Starmer for appointing Mandelson. A Epstein survivor Epstein abuse survivor has savaged Keir Starmer. This is a report out of Daily Mail. They do have a funny way of wording things. Has savaged Keir Starmer, an Epstein victim, over his decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as U.S. ambassador. In a dramatic intervention, MPs heard a statement from U.S. survivor Lisa Phillips in what she said the prime minister had failed to listen to those who suffered at Epstein's hands. Miss Phillips, who was assaulted by Epstein at the age of 21 and then trafficked for years, challenged Keir Starmer to agree to a public inquiry into Epstein's activities and those of his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, and others who enabled or protected their crimes. The former model said, as a survivor, I struggle to understand how Prime Minister Keir Starmer appointed Peter Mandelson when his association with Jeffrey Epstein had long been publicly known. For survivors, this raises serious questions about whether the lessons of Epstein's scandal have truly been learned. I have repeatedly requested the opportunity to meet with the prime minister, but those requests have been ignored. Old Epstein victim here, Lisa Phillips. Take a look at Jimmy Savile there in the UK, and that should give you an idea about how they go about dealing with child sex abuse. They embrace it. He had a open door policy at the Royal Palace there. So that's how they deal with it there in the UK. Most corrupt regime in American history. Let's take a look at this from Scott Bassett.
Thank you. Well, thank you, and I will ask my questions first today.
And we would like to hear what Adam Wyden and Jeffrey Epstein talked about. Your son's largest investment position was Rick's Cabaret. So did your son and Jeffrey Epstein talk about pole dancing as he begged him for money using your limited credibility?
Should I just proceed?
I'm going to proceed with my questions, and Mr. Secretary, I'm going to start with regard to the issues that Senator Wyden raised.
Old Bassett trying to turn it around there. You're not going to turn this around, buddy. Barry Weiss, new head of ZBS News, and her wife are in Epstein files. Weiss's wife was very close to Epstein, so much so that she shared with Epstein her first encounter with. See her wife's enthusiasm to meet Epstein in 2018, when everyone already knew he was a convicted sex offender. Here's the email there. Redacted, but you got to read between the lines. You got to read between the redactions on this stuff, right? Right. But that's who they're talking about here. Wednesday at 11 a.m. is perfect. I'll be there. Hello, Nellie, Jeffrey. We'll be in New York tomorrow on Wednesday. Might you be around and available to come meet him? Marsha believes you will both enjoy each other's company. Perhaps Wednesday, 11 a.m. And so they're giddy there now. Barry Weiss's wife, Kitty, to meet up with Epstein after it was fully public known he was a convicted sex offender. So wonderful company they keep. These activists, the Trump Epstein reading room, put out this video, a timeline, and that's the thumbnail for today's show. Trump and Epstein throughout the years, a documented timeline. No audio here, but they're showing you. You can print these out and put them up in your area. All mapped out there. Of course, Trump knew nothing and he turned in Epstein. That's a bullshit cover story. There you go. And they ended with that. Guilty on 34 counts. A Manhattan jury found Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments made before the 2016 presidential election. It was the first criminal conviction of a former United States president. You too, you too can download this right here. I will put the link at Weaponized News Substack for you, or you can go here to Trumpsonian.us, and you can download this file and print it out and post it in your area to raise awareness about Trump and Epstein through the years, a documented timeline, and they lay it all out right there. Going all the way back to the 80s, Trump meets Epstein, 1987. Going way back there. And it goes on. Documenting all of the timeline of the relationship. The Trump-Epstein Memorial Reading Room, they put on that display in New York City. In just 16 days, nearly 10,000 New Yorkers walked through 3,437 bound volumes of the Epstein files in Tribeca Gallery. And so they put on that public display, raising awareness about Epstein files right here. The Trump-Epstein Reading Room also posted, New York is the only state in the country where soliciting a minor is not a felony. Epstein survivors and friends of the Reading Room are leading the fight to change that and protect all minors from sex trafficking, but New York lawmakers are running out of time to act, and so they're trying to make solicitation of a minor a felony there in the state of New York. Here is a House Appropriations Committee committee chairman Tom Cole tries to shut down Representative Madeleine Dean for questioning acting director of the DOJ Todd Blanche over the Epstein files.
About justice for the Epstein victims and survivors. And I'm going to begin with the closing words of Virginia Roberts Giuffre in her book. It's literally the last paragraph. She writes, I hope for a world in which predators are punished, not protected. Victims are treated with compassion, not shamed. And powerful people face the same consequences as anyone else. I yearn too for a world in which the perpetrators face more shame than their victims do, and where anyone who's been trafficked can confront their abusers when they are ready, no matter how much time has passed. We don't live in this world yet. I mean, seriously, where are those videotapes the FBI confiscated from Epstein's houses? And why haven't they led to prosecution of any more abusers? That's from Virginia. It was printed, as you know, posthumously after her death. Mr. Blanche, you and I had a chance a couple of weeks ago at the Department of Justice to speak about these cases. We discussed three things in connection with this monstrous, decades-long crime spree. Number one, your failure to fully redact survivor information. Number two, your failure to follow the law and release the remaining files. And number three, your refusal to prosecute anybody else. Mr. Blanche, let's continue that inane conversation, but this time it's public. This time, and more importantly, it's under oath. You're speaking to Congress. So let's get into it. When will you comply with the law and release all of the files?
As I said to you when we spoke before, we have complied with the law. We have reviewed.
There are 3 million more documents, and you know what you said to me? They're all duplicative, and they include another guy named Epstein.
No, I didn't
Nobody's
say
buying.
that.
That's
I
what
did
you
not
said.
say that.
That's what you said.
So look,
reclaiming my time.
Can I answer? Can I answer the question?
You may not. I
Okay.
just gave you the answer you gave me.
Telling.
No, actually, it's my time, Mr. Chairman. I think those are the rules of this committee. I told him the answer he gave me, and now in public he's trying to say something else. Please stop the clock. Can I get that time back? May I have 20 seconds back, Mr. Chairman? Thank you. I very much appreciate that. Mr. Blanche.
You don't want me to answer the question.
Mr. Blanche, as you know, I've visited DOJ 3 times for as much as 10 hours, and I'll be going back. Does the Epstein File Transparency Act say that the file should be available to members of Congress with a minder at DOJ where you're in a secure room, you can't write on any of the binders, you can take your own notes? Is that what the Transparency Act says?
It doesn't require we allow you to come to DOJ at all. We did that on our own.
What does it say in terms of transparency? It says that they should be made publicly available.
And they
Am
were.
Am I correct?
And
Publicly
they were.
available.
And they were.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon. And I'd actually like to get 20 seconds back. How do I get cut off 2 minutes into this?
2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's not.
What rules are we operating under? Because he's under.
You're operating under the Epstein Files cover-up rules. Now, what about all that missing evidence? Here's a short clip from Ben Swan.
Jeffrey Epstein, because his homes were raided, he had a media room in every single one of his homes, and he's got monitors everywhere, and he's got cameras wired in every single room in his house. We also know that Epstein has storage units hidden all around the country. Do you know what's in storage units? It's all evidence, because you don't have cameras set up all over your house that are recording, by the way, onto tape, because 20 years ago, you're not recording on anything digital. Those physical tapes are sitting someplace. If he was doing this in some kind of way that had nothing to do with blackmail, he wouldn't hide them around the country. You'd put them close to home. You'd put them in your basement where you could access them if you needed. He absolutely was a honeypot, and he has plenty of evidence on everything.
Where is all the evidence? Well, the FBI has it, and they're continuing the blackmail operation, obviously. So it used to be a thing that this was a big deal. The NSA Data Spy Center there in Utah. Remember that? Jason Bassler Free Thought Project says, why is the government building giant surveillance facilities? In 2013, we were asking that question. And in 2026, we need more AI data centers immediately. What happened, America? Well, technocracy is what happened. And they got their man, Trump, in there. Most people still don't get it. In 6 months, your new car will be a data harvesting machine. It will collect risk scores, attention data, behavioral profiles, location plus route patterns. Your car won't just watch you. It will monitor you, rate you, and monetize you. Glyphosate in our forest, biometrics at our border, data centers on our land, Zionists in our government, flock cameras in our streets, aluminum oxide in our skies. Question any of it, and you're antiseptic, conspiracy theorist, or an extremist. Move along, citizen. That's a post by Jason Bassler. Free Thought Project, and his final post here, Project Matador. Amarillo, Texas, the largest proposed data center campus on Earth. 2.5 million gallons of water per day. 15 to 18 million square feet of infrastructure. 11 to 17 gigawatts of planned power demand. 15 separate AI data centers on a single campus. First U.S. AI campus designed around nuclear power. Project Matador isn't just a data center. It's an AI industrial city built from the ground up. This giant Project Matador there in Texas. And here is, was this a 247 page from the government? This is from nrc.gov. You see, it's technocracy. All of this is integrated into national security. Donald J. Trump generating plant. Project Matador. Pretty amazing here. I'll post a link to this on Weaponized News Substack, or you're free, obviously, to go do your own research about Project Matador. Yeah, they're proposing to make it self-contained with its own nuclear reactor. I don't know what could go wrong. Probably nothing. Obviously, nothing's ever gone wrong with nuclear reactors. Tennessee now requires all data center owners to pay the full cost of any electrical infrastructure needed to support their facilities, preventing public funding or cost shifting to other ratepayers. The law enacted through House Bill 1847 and Senate Bill 2128 and effective May 7, 2026 mandates that both new and existing data centers with peak demands of at least 50 megawatts must cover the entire cost of infrastructure upgrades or expansions necessary to supply electricity to their operations. And I'm asking the question, should Trump balm Tennessee over this transgression against technocracy? I think it's a fair question to ask. Let's watch this report out of local Tennessee news station, ABC Channel 2.
Data centers are now required to pay for the infrastructure needed to power them. That includes electricity. According to the Tennessee Valley Authority, data centers make up about 18% of their overall industrial power load. They expect that number to double by 2030. Some of that cost has fallen on ratepayers. State Capitol reporter Tori Gessner explains how this new law will work.
It's the largest AI supercomputer in the world, and it needs a large amount of electricity to keep it running. xAI's Colossus in Memphis uses enough to power 200 to 300,000 homes. But when the company came to town, they brought their own energy source with them.
They bought a decommissioned plant in nearby Mississippi, and they are generating their own electricity, and they are transmitting that to the data center.
Senator Brent Taylor calls it the xAI way, using that to draft a bill just signed into law.
It actually accomplishes exactly what President Trump has said he wants to do, and that is to protect ratepayers when it comes to these large data centers.
The legislation will require data centers that have a peak demand of 50 megawatts of electricity during the first 3 years of operation to pay for their own infrastructure, so the ratepayers aren't stuck with the electric bill.
This is just common sense. This is a way that there is an explosion of data centers around the country.
Sounds like terrorist talk to me. Here's a report out of PBS about what they saw investigating these data centers.
Stargate is one of the most ambitious and powerful AI data centers ever built.
It's really hard to get a sense of actually how much energy is pulsing through these facilities. And so that's why we've started to incorporate a thermal drone to really try to get a sense of what is actually happening at these facilities.
We're driving around and we still haven't gotten a clear look at this place. And I think that's why the aerial view is going to be key to figuring out what's going on here.
Our thermal drone is just one part of our reporting process. We still heavily rely on more traditional forms of investigative journalism, mainly public records requests. So we often use a combination of public records requests and innovative things like thermal imaging to really get a sense of what exactly is happening at these facilities. All right, so this is what it looks like in a standard drone shot, but watch what happens when I switch to thermal. Wow. It's important to note that it's not showing us the specific pollutants or specific gases that are emitted by these turbines, but just by showing us that heat signature, we know that pollution is happening at this site.
Gas turbines like these are essentially jet engines that generate electricity, and they emit a lot of greenhouse gases and harmful air pollution, which is linked to asthma, heart attacks, and even premature death. The day we filmed, Stargate was only operating one of the 10 turbines that it has on site, but it eventually plans to have more than 50 of these turbines powering its operations here.
It's absolutely shocking to see that invisible pollution made visible like this. This is incredible. So how can you tell if a facility like this is following the law?
Well, we're going to take these images to a series of experts to really make sure that we understand what we're looking at, but you'd be surprised what I've found in the past.
Evan's investigation previously took him to South Haven, Mississippi, another community being impacted by a giant new hyperscale AI data center, xAI's Colossus, which helps power their chatbot, Grok.
In this drive for speed, this race for AI dominance, Elon Musk and xAI parked these massive turbines on tractor trailers to power their operations. They then argued that these were temporary power sources and therefore did not require state or federal permits to operate. That is really out of step with long-standing EPA policy that turbines like these, which are major pollution sources, require permits regardless of whether or not they're considered temporary or not. As soon as the drone rose above the tree line, I could see that a number of these turbines were emitting very, very strong.
Everything's fine. What Jimmy on the YouTube says, put them in Republican states where they do as they're told. That's a pretty funny one there, Jimmy. So we may have to bomb California. Trump may have to, for this transgression against technocracy. Max says don't do it, but he may. Monterey Park yesterday. Don't try to pull me back in to any of this and say that voting matters. I guess it did in this case. I guess it did. Monterey Park becomes first U.S. city to permanently ban data centers. Monterey Park, California, has become the first city in the United States to permanently ban data centers through a voter-approved ballot measure, making it a landmark decision in the growing national debate over hyperscale AI facilities. How the ban came about. The ban stems from strong community opposition to proposed 250,000 square foot AI data center at Saturn Business Park, which would have operated near residential neighborhoods. Residents raised concerns about water and electricity use, noise pollution, air quality, and potential impacts on public health and utility rates. The project was withdrawn after months of protests and packed city council meetings. Bunch of terrorists there in Monterey Park, according to technocracy. And we did have a primary here in California. They're still counting. Last report I saw, they're still counting 3 million votes here in California. Early returns. I don't think they can rig this one up with the ballots that fell off the back of the truck with this one, because the voters there in Monterey Park overwhelmingly voted at 86% to go ahead and ban the data center within its city limits of Monterey Park. Who knows? Maybe they'll find 3 million votes saying they're in favor. And they're like, there's only 7,000 registered voters in the city. Who cares? You know? We've seen all of the shenanigans, and they are legion with our elections, but it does look like an actual win for the people. I know, God forbid, The people actually use the democracy for representing their own interests. It's quite sinful here now in 2026, technocracy. We find ourselves here in America, but it did happen. Decisive vote against data centers in Monterey Park. They may have to be bombed in the near future for national security. AI-related corporate debt now accounts for roughly 15% of the entire corporate bond universe. That's unusual whales reporting. So it's this giant circle jerk of enormous fraud going on with the financing of said data centers and said software companies as well. AI corporate spending pause. For those paying attention, the sands are shifting quickly. Sam Altman said AI budgeting has recently become a huge issue for some companies, something that never came up earlier in the year. Oh, man. Fake it till you make it. That's the motto there in Silicon Valley. Anthropic resists sharing financial information with lenders, sources say. How you have $1 trillion valuation and don't even provide financial statements? Talk about a fraud. We'll see. I think they have to, by law, to go public. They have to, right, at some point, provide their audited financial statements. So we shall see. They'll probably... emergency national security, we don't even need to see financial statements. Just give them $1 trillion because AI rules, bro. Nothing would surprise me at this point. Waiver of all checks and balances, all physical checks and balances for national security. We must have AI data centers. AI will make the, quote, tech bro class even richer. Joseph Stiglitz has said, Nobel Prize-winning economist. The economy's so bad, maybe we don't go after Southern Poverty Law Center. I don't know. Anti-hate group, because somebody needs to fund the hate, right? Because that's a subsection of the economy, very valuable. Anti-hate group funded KKK robes and hoods. Southern Poverty Law Center donors also allegedly funded cross burnings. The org also paid individuals so they could focus on hate full time. That's what I'm talking about. Instead of getting a job, it's an indictment. They talk about it here. And so the economy's so bad, we need the Southern Poverty Law Center to fund hate full time. And they're getting in the way of this, actually hurting the economy at the Department of Justice. So there you go. We need hate to be funded full time. And so we're losing this sector of this very rough economy, the hate economy. I'm sure they can pick up funding from some other groups here now, losing the cross burning funding from the Southern Poverty Law Center here now. Trump on the economy says, if you take away just the price of gasoline, the energy, we have very little inflation. Are we all stupid? That's what drives the economy is the energy, and it trickles down, or the cost is passed through the cost of transport. It's literally everything. He downplays it. Oh, no big deal. Come on, bro. SpaceX targets $135 IPO price at valuation of $177 trillion. Report out of CNBC. U.S. households in the top 1% gained at least 101 times more wealth than the median household in America since 1989, according to a report out of Oxfam. The Trump administration has announced it will dismantle a $368 million deep sea monitoring system that provides critical data on the ocean, on the world's oceans. Report out of CNN. AI drove the numbers of layoffs to the highest May total since the bat times 2020. And they literally shut the world's economy down because bats were circling. Uber has cut 24% of its HR, talent acquisition, and recruiters, 24% of its workforce in those departments. Report out of Bloomberg. Michael Burry, the Big Short dude, has said that 3 customers account for more than 60% of NVIDIA's entire accounts receivable. And so that is the circle jerk of financing the Ponzi scheme of all this hyper-skilled AI BS. They got it set up. I'm not even going to explain it to you, but if that is true, then it's a complete fraud, because these companies are rigging all of their finances around the circle jerk of their own fraud here now. I could explain it in better technical terms. I don't have the time, but no, that's what's happening here. Ray Dalio, famous economics finance dude out there, he says U.S. is past the point of no return on debt, sees 1930 style financial repression coming soon. Ray Dalio said the United States has crossed a debt threshold from which it cannot return, and the Federal Reserve may soon be forced into a 1930 style policy of holding interest rates artificially low. He made these comments at Forbes Icon Last Summit. Yeah. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Well, this whole thing's going to come down to the time of the bankers choosing when they can maximize pain on the public and profiteer and maximize their own profitization, is exactly how this whole Ponzi scheme is going to sort out. The likelihood of Iran developing nuclear bombs has increased, the International Atomic Energy Agency said. By 2027, AI investment will exceed global military spending, according to JP Morgan Chase. Well, the reason for that is AI investment is part of global military spending, i.e. weaponization, i.e. Skynet, i.e. technocracy. Trump's Iran war drains U.S. oil supplies to lowest level since 2004, according to Financial Times. Let's take a look at the AAA national average for the price of a gallon of gasoline, and it's gone down again today, about 3 cents. So according to AAA, national average for the price of a gallon of gasoline, on average across America here, the price of a gallon of gasoline is $4.26. And you can see it did go down from yesterday, where we're at $4.29, went down a cool 3 cents. They're still, well, we even went below $6 here in California. So everything's looking up. We've won the Iran war 96 times now. Treasury Secretary Bissett acknowledges the average household is currently paying up to $200 more for gas. I got news for them. Let's double it. So let's just double all their fake economic data. As per usual here now, according to Brown University, the Watson School of International and Public Affairs, they're tracking the cost burden of the Iran war per U.S. household and overall consumer cost burden since the beginning of the Iran war on February 28, 2026. Here are those numbers. So more than double Treasury Secretary Scott Bessett's claim there. We're now up to $406.98 cost burden per U.S. household across both diesel and gasoline, as you can see there. And total consumer burden since the beginning of the war has went well past $53 billion. We got a 33 column in there. So we're at $53.3 billion total consumer burden since the beginning of the Iran war on February 28, 2026. You can see right there. And we are building the Greater North America Project. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, General Dan Kane, made his first official appearance to Caracas, Venezuela, where he met with senior interim governmental leaders at the U.S. Embassy. Zelensky in Ukraine, he says, I'm ready for direct negotiations with Putin to end this war rather than wait in line with, everybody finishes all the conflicts in the world, and then our turn comes. Stop it, guys. Stop it. Stop you Russia-Ukraine war. We'll see. We'll see. And then NATO was there with them too. So NATO didn't want to stop the war. America, I don't know. America's like, Trump's bored with it now. But it goes on, it rages on. And so we had the big attacks by Russia over the last week in retaliation to the Ukrainian, NATO, American attacks on that school that killed a bunch of school kids, Russian school kids. And Russia hit them with a hypersonic, a Reznik, a bunch of other attacks. And so they're like, let's stop this already. Both sides have said so, but they've said so many times throughout the unprovoked invasion by evil Putin, YouTube. That's where we're at with that. Hopefully they stop. Good signal, at least from Zelensky, saying he's ready to stop the war. Here's Director of Homeland Security now, Mullen. We told you this guy was a dirtbag when they appointed him. Here he admits that, the government, he admits that U.S. government has been keeping a database of all American citizens for our own safety.
Are you keeping a database of American citizens?
Are we keeping a database?
Yes, sir. A lot of your ICE agents out there have said we are keeping a database of
Then how do you get a passport if you don't have a database of American
How can you keep a database of American citizens, sir? Why?
Gentlemen's time's expired.
Because you're a damn terrorist if you protest these data centers. That's why. Meme of the day from the Department of War. It's the thumbnail of the show here. You can't win, so don't try. Pentagon Undersecretary Michael there. Maximizing warfighter lethality through complete technological overmatch. The Department of War will remain dominant across all domains of warfare. Quite a meme they created there. We still don't have hypersonic missiles officially. And so we're failing here now. The Russians are ahead of us in the hypersonic missile game. Washington recognizes Somali's territorial integrity in a blow to Aardvark Land Somaliland project. And so that's actually surprising because they're trying to set up another one of these Hamas centers, whatever you want to call them, a bunch of terrorists to fight the Houthis and others, to fight the access of evil there of Iran and its proxies, right? In Somaliland, Aardvarks wanted to set up this whole program, and then we'd come back in a couple of years and call them all terrorists and bomb the hell out of them. And turns out the United States affirms its recognition of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Federal Republic of Somalia, which encompasses the region of Somaliland. And so they're going to have a hard time setting up their terror training camps in Somaliland. So that's an interesting development there out of the State Department. They'll still do it, but it's going to be a little bit harder if Somalia says we don't want your Somaliland terrorist wonderland in our country. That could make things a little bit more difficult, but I'm sure they'll find a way to make it possible there. But interesting development out of the State Department, not fully backing Aardvark's every move. Antiseptic behavior, obviously, needs to be condemned. Aardvark Land firm Black Core deployed sophisticated cyber operations to sabotage left-wing candidates in France. So I'm glad they're interfering in foreign elections, a grave sin, as we've come to learn. A sophisticated cyber espionage and defamation campaign orchestrated by the Aardvark Land firm Black Core targeted left-wing pro-Palestinian candidates from La France in Insoumium, LFI party, has sent shockwaves through the French political establishment. Well, they're all antiseptic. So according to a report out of Middle East Eye, the covert operations, which struck during the March municipal elections, they're at local elections in France, utilized automated fake accounts, localized smear advertisements, and highly sensitive data leaks, including the personal tax information and passwords of LFI MP Francisco Palacamel. It's all French. I'm horrible with French and all other foreign dialects for that matter, and English for that matter, but thanks for sticking with us here. Yeah, so they did a bunch of these dirty cyber tricks on them. They're interfering in French elections, and if you're against that, you're antiseptic hater and should probably be sanctioned. So we appreciate foreign Aardvark meddling in French elections, targeting pro-Palestinian factions. Now on to, how does this guy have a job unless his job was to start a major war? Because Jared Kushner, last I remember, I have a memory, he was at the negotiating table with Iran and completely and utterly failed and kicked off a giant war. Somehow this guy's getting a private island now. Jared Kushner says he will bring wealth and power and status only to countries that join the Abraham Accord. So he's continuing with the racketeering operations of the Trump administration. And the Muslims already said, a bunch of them, we went over it, that this is Pakistan especially, this is not a no-go.
There's one thing I'm looking at from a more of a personal interest. I don't know if it will qualify for the fund, but obviously been helping Steve and to promote the Abraham Accords to make the ones that are existing stick, and then also to find new opportunities. So I have a partner, my partner Asher, who I mentioned before. He's actually of Moroccan descent and actually of Syrian descent. So we've been looking, maybe there's some opportunities to bring investment to Morocco, a country that I know you're very proud of, to really help them create dividends from the Abraham Accords. And so to show the people there that there can be great rewards, because leaders who join the Abraham Accords, it shows that they're thinking about the future, they're pushing for stability. It shows a lot of wisdom and a lot of forward thinking. So those are the environments where I think investors would want to be in. And I have a lot of American investors who are very who love the Abraham Accords, who want to join us in that. So we're looking at opportunities to invest in countries who have joined the Abraham Accords, but we're also looking at opportunities to invest in countries that might join the Abraham Accords and to create economic packages to incentivize them. So another one of my partners is Syrian, and he said, Jared, we should put together a big investment package maybe for Syria, so that if they join the Abraham Accords, they could have a big incentive to do it. How amazing would it be to have a Muslim and Jewish firm working, Jewish partners, with American, working together to try to bring.
What a con artist this character is, man. More from Kushner. I'll save you on his babbling. Kushner admits his friend Nate Rothschild was the one who helped him find his new off-the-grid island in the middle of the Mediterranean while he was on his boat on vacation. Kushner says he had a private meeting with Albania's prime minister on Rothschild's boat. The private island will be exclusively for the rich, the powerful, and the elite. We were on a friend's boat, Nate Rothschild's, on vacation. This is how all of this came about, allegedly. Denver said black core or black cube. Well, about the same now, isn't it? Right? Yeah, Lebanon, they're leveling Lebanon. And so there will be no peace deal as long as the greater Aardvark land project continues. Iran has said as much, and Aardvark land has said as much. They don't give a damn. They're continuing with the greater Aardvark land project, bombing the hell out of southern Lebanon. Dozens of towns across southern Lebanon were struck by Aardvark land warplane attacks and drone attacks. And it's ongoing. That was in the last 24 hours, let's just say. Aardvark land strikes kill 3 more paramedics, 6 civilians, and a soldier across Lebanon, as death toll since March 2nd reaches 3,516 dead Lebanese since the ceasefire went into effect. And again, they're carrying out a systemic destruction of Lebanese public health infrastructure. More reporting about the attacks yesterday. 48 Lebanese were killed and 97 wounded in Aardvark land attacks on Lebanon yesterday, according to Lebanese Ministry of Health. 4 paramedics, 6 farmers, and 1 woman are among those killed in the attacks on southern Lebanon. More of these attacks. Let's see. Should we play some of this video? Video of a dude in ambulance getting whacked. Let's see where we at here. Horrific first-person camera scenes just arrived at the attack. Yeah, I don't think we'll show it because they're going to show the mangled bodies, and we can't have that. But know that it is happening, and you can go find the war porn of the mangled bodies blowing off arms, legs, heads, all the rest of it. It's essentially snuff films. It's quite horrific. It goes on, just more attacks. There's videos of them, of it. They're leveling the place as we continue to report here. On to Gaza now. You're like, but they're still whacking the Palestinians. Yeah, they still are. They still are. In the last 24 hours, 3 Palestinians have been killed and 35 wounded. Since October 7th, 2023, at least 72,942 Palestinians have been directly killed by aardvark land forces, and 173,011 wounded. Since October 11th, last year ceasefire, at least 936 Palestinians have been directly killed and 2,903 wounded by aardvark land attacks. Bodies recovered from the rubble, 781. And there's video of a little girl laying on a gurney, blowing up, bleeding out of her neck. I'll save you that video, but there's clip after clip of little kids blowing apart. It's hellish. So in the last 24 hours, they're in Gaza, and they're bombing them in the tents, right? I don't think this was a tent bombing per se, but they're bombing them, demolishing homes. It's just a full-on terror campaign against civilians, claiming they're fighting terrorism. This is what all this amounts to. And maybe they whack a terrorist here and there, but the large majority of those killed and injured are civilians. More pictures, stacked up bodies, dead kids. It's horrific. And on to the ultra-Zionist settlers in the occupied West Bank. They continue to set fires here now in what appears to be a scorched earth policy. And so that was in the occupied West Bank. Continuing theme. Remember the fires we saw in Patagonia set by ultra-Zionists? It's the same theme. So they're now famous for poisoning the well and arson. And so the neighbors that we would want to have. Aardvark land advances 2,162 new settlement units in the occupied West Bank. Aardvark authorities have approved 2,162 new housing units across settlements in the occupied West Bank, advancing major expansion plans. And that's a report out of the Aardvark Times here. You could see over 2,100 settlement units advance in planning progress. They're taking all of that land. They're taking all of that land as we continue to report here now. Tel Aviv advances de facto annexation of occupied West Bank with massive settlement expansion. And then, of course, how do we know this? I don't know. Smotrich told us the plan, and they're hell-bent on carrying out that plan. That's how we know these things, because they tell us. I know it's antiseptic to cite their own evil plans, but they kind of tell us every day about what their evil plans are and their devotion and their commitment to carrying them out. Ben-Gvir, Smotrich, Katz, Bibi, the whole crew there continually tell us. I know it's antiseptic to point these things out, but they're the ones telling us. Same routine with, how dare you, it's blood liable to indict us for war crimes and crimes against humanity. You guys posted your war crimes, bro. Excuse me, for pointing it out. We're not the bad ones for pointing it out and saying that's wrong. We're not going to cheer on your genocide, bro. That's all the reporting we got for today. Same routine. The horror continues there in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the occupied West Bank, and in occupied Jerusalem. The terror campaign continues there, backed up by America. Backed up by America. Okay, let's take a look at the headlines, the latest, greatest out of Iran International. U.S. will recover Iran's enriched uranium in not too distant future, Trump says. Iran said it's just simply not happening. That's a no-go. But Trump keeps lying about their nuclear program. Aardvarkland and Lebanon united in push to curb Iran's influences, Aardvarkland envoy says. Well, Lebanon government is a puppet of America, the West, Aardvarkland essentially here now. So, yeah. Iran says no tangible progress made in talks with U.S. Not good. Not good. Chinese missile likely used in Iran shoot down of U.S. F-15E. No return to full-scale war with Iran unless U.S. troops killed. Report out of the Wall Street Journal. Bahrain arrests 15 individuals suspected of being Iranian operatives. And that's the latest headlines out of Iran International. Let's take a look at Al Jazeera here. Nothing that heavy yet. What do they say? Limits of ceasefire tested by latest U.S.-Iran clashes in the Gulf. Trump said they're just reciprocating U.S. strikes, so there's still a ceasefire. Just make up whatever bullshit that, I mean, literally the emperor has no clothes. Their words mean nothing. They just feed us a steady propaganda, a fed slop propaganda and lies. Yeah, not much new there out of Al Jazeera. We covered it. Big bombs are not dropping right now, so thankfully, I guess, is the best. But all signs are looking toward the big bombs dropping heavy again here now. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's pray for peace. But it's not looking good. It's not looking good on the peace negotiating front. Okay, over to Odysee, and I got to take like 4 clicks to get to the channel here now and see our viewers over there in the chat. Shout out to Odysee audience. Fat Bob, John, Deep, Gurr. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for tuning in and chatting it up on the Odysee. Let's see here. Gurr says the Chinese protester guy brings Enoch Burke to mind. Enoch is still in Irish prison as a matter of principles. Yees. Gerald Salente said today, Moats, on Moats, Galloway show, America went down because of Vietnam, planned all of it. Indeed, there. I'd have to agree. That was Fat Bob says John Coleman as well, lambasting Kennedy, Johnson, Democrats primarily. We got to look into this Enoch Burke. Glad you pointed that out, Gurr. I got to look. I'm saving the name And we'll look into that guy because honestly, I never heard of him. Yeah, to remain in prison for at least another 3 weeks, they say. He's in prison for refusing to comply with court orders, and he has been formally dismissed. Is this the guy, the protester dude? Right now, I remember this guy. Yeah, he was protesting. What was he protesting? He was protesting in front of the school. Was he protesting transgenders? I think that's what he was protesting, right? Let's see, BBC report from more than a year ago. I know this is from November of last year. Irish teacher returns to prison after fanatical campaign. What was he protesting? It was either trannies. It was trannies, right? Yeah, transgenders. There you go. Yeah, Mr. Burke was dismissed for gross misconduct arising out of his refusal to obey a direction of the school that he worked for that a transgender pupil be addressed as they. For the crime of not using the correct pronouns there. So, yeah, kind of the same thing. I could see that, Gur. He's up again, except for it's a bunch of rainbow flag, green, purple, blue hairs, right? Are those tanks now in the ideological war of gender? So I could see, yeah. And he's sticking by his guns and doing a bunch of time in jail for it. I guess he's lucky they didn't run him over with a tank. That may be next. Yeah, Trump, he looked loaded in that video, in that one clip. In those clips, what is it, Podcast One or whatever? I think that's out of like the New York Compost, their operation there. Something's up with his health. Sam, you may as well play Trump's clips at 10 speed time, right? Yeah, there's a big old backstory to Mr. Enoch there. But that was essentially, he was jailed for improper pronoun usage. Fat Bob says, damn, I love our phony political racket system. It's American democracy, Fat Bob, okay? And so that's what we fight for. Let's see here. Our last couple comments from John. No surprise in the U.S. Recognizing Somaliland after Aardvarkland recognized them. Trump and company, no doubt, got their orders from Bibi and the City of London to further the greater Aardvarkland project. No, maybe you misunderstood the report. The State Department said they recognize the territorial integrity of Somalia, not Somaliland, which is a cutout they're trying to make of Somalia, the way I understand it. So, I don't know. We'll take a closer look at that. We did cover a lot of news today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this Wednesday edition of Weaponized News. Thank you guys for tuning in on Odysee, keeping that chat lively and cordial as per usual. Thank you for tuning in on X, Kick, Bitchute, Substack, Rumble, and YouTube. Let's go over to Rumble and YouTube. We did have some chatting pick up there. Shout out to Mac again, Jimmy, Ryan on the YouTube. It says democracy's cooked, the American empire's over. Shout out to Carrie on the Rumble. Carrie says Trump imposed 12% tariffs on Australia again. interceptor failed, then caused the airport damage. I don't know, Carrie. CENTCOM says that's not true. The first Avenger says Trump is everything you teach your children not to be. He's a cruel, ignorant, and lawless, a bully, a coward, a cheat, and a pathological liar. You sound first Avenger sound like, remember there's a clip of Robert De Niro going off on Trump. Pretty funny one where he's like, he's a punk, he's a cheat, he's a scoundrel, and goes through all this stuff. Pretty funny one out there I've seen. But yeah, I don't disagree there with you, first Avenger. Max says the Zios have set this whole thing up to execute Americans' dignity, public reputation. Trump's doublespeak is a nebulous black hole. Yeah. Shout out to Denver on Rumble and the YouTubes. Denver says, because everything is chasing and unrealistic and further driving price points up for components, consumer demand falls and prices keep going up because government data projects. And then Jimmy said, put them in Republican states where they do as they're told. They are good bootlickers. Back to blue, bro, because it's for national security and our own safety. Our own enslavement is for our own safety, because you are, I guess you're considered safe if you're in an 8x10 cell in solitary confinement, unless you're Epstein, and then they'll find a way to let you kill yourself. But besides that, that's the only way we can guarantee your safety is solitary confinement in a concrete room alone with nothing, naked as well, because you may hang yourself. Max says SPLC ignored my calls for help. I know the hate budget's gone, bro. So I mean, they were funding a large part of hate in America, and now that they've taken that out of the economy, I'm sure one of these other orgs will pick up the mantle of funding the hate economy here in America. Let's see, lazy on the YouTube, it's already happening. Denver says because market, America, we believe in a free market and free enterprise, even though we initiated tens of trillions of dollars of QE just over the last 2 decades. We are watching the near end of a very long con. Are you saying that the whole monetary system is a Ponzi scheme because of quantitative easing, the Federal Reserve literally buying its own debt? Is that what you're implying here, Denver? Oh my gosh. Yeah, and Denver says black core or black cube. Yeah, it's about the same, right? Pamela, shout out on the Rumble, says Kushner Island is not in the Mediterranean. It's the Adriatic Sea, despite much reporting to the contrary. Yeah, Denver says aardvarks are the biggest fake cowards walking the earth. It actually makes sense that the claims of Trump's IQ being 73, that makes a lot more sense than the endless Hasbro, yeah. And then the pro aardvark Hasbro, yeah. Where's Ruckus? I don't know. No Ruckus today, but Ruckus will be joining us tomorrow, Mac. Hopefully. That's what earlier communications in the day had scheduled. So look for Ruckus tomorrow on Weaponized News. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Wednesday edition as we're in day 96 of the Iran war. And it's not looking like we're going to have any resolution, only looking like escalation. Let's pray for peace in Russia, Ukraine. Let's especially pray for peace in America, Iran, Aardvark land massacres on Gaza and Lebanon. Let's pray for peace in all of these. And we didn't even cover it. There is a big proxy war going on there in the Sudan, where many people are dying. Proxy war between Saudi Arabia and the UAE and many other factions, with innocent men, women, children, civilians caught up in the middle being massacred, and it's quite horrific. That is also going on, but nobody seems to notice or care because they're in Africa. All fighting over the land and resources there. So that is also going on, very underreported here now. As always, everybody do your own research, peace, love, and freedom. Speak out and take action. Have a great rest of your Wednesday evening. And we'll see you back here on Thursday with Ruckus riding shotgun for more weaponized news. Pray for peace.